Welcome to Give Me Hope with your host and author, Johanna Vendel. Come join the conversation as Johanna focuses on sharing impactful personal narratives of loss. Her platform provides a safe space for individuals to express themselves, find comfort, and build connections as they navigate their grief journey. So now, please welcome the host of Give Me Hope, Johanna Vendel.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna. Today's guest is a quite interesting talk that we will have, and I am going to introduce her. Her name is Heather Sutherland, and she will tell us a little bit more about herself. So let's introduce Heather. Hello, Heather. How are you today?
Hi, Johanna. It's so nice to be here, and I'm doing good. I'm doing great.
Welcome to Give Me Hope with Johanna.
Thank you for having me. That's my desire to give people, to give people hope that they can get well from chronic complex conditions.
Yes. So can you just tell the viewers who you are and a little background, so that we know where you're coming from?
Sure. I'm going to give you the short version. My name is Heather, and I am a board certified functional health coach, but I spent about 3 decades being chronically ill and disabled. And about 22 years out, we found out I had undiagnosed Lyme disease, which is a bacterial usually from a tick infection. And I struggled to walk, stand, incredible nerve pain, a whole host of symptoms.
Wow.
And also had undiagnosed mold toxicity, which sort of kept me from getting well from the Lyme. So that sort of created my passion. Never planned to work with people with mold and Lyme, but because I got well from all these years of illness and peeled away all those layers, people started reaching out to me as a health coach, and that has become my area of specialty is mold toxicity, Lyme, and chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And really, my desire is to give people hope if they've been sick a long time, to help them know that they can get to the underlying root cause of why they're sick, to educate people that mold and water damage in buildings is a really big issue all over the world. And often, when people have chronic conditions, even if it's not Lyme, cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, everybody who finds me, they're often living in a water damaged home and don't know it. And they don't realize that that water damage is negatively impacting their health and their immune system. So, because of that, I actually created a course with my colleague Bobby McGrath called Navigating Mold and CIRS. It was designed for practitioners. We've had a lot of patients take the course, and a patient course is sort of already written. It'll be coming out soon.
Wow, that is a whole mouthful of information right there. Wow. So did you do studies get to get certified um, in this
I
field? Do you
I
have your
was
own
a
business?
I was a dietitian and diabetic educator who had a private practice and got very ill by the time I was 35. I'm now 60.
Wow.
And then I went to school to be a functional health coach. Well, sadly, I didn't learn anything in school about mold or Lyme, but it was in school that a friend of mine, when I was very, very sick and being diagnosed with a lot of different autoimmune diseases, reached out to me and said, "Have you ever looked into mold?" And I had just moved to the desert, the low desert. And I'm like, mold in the desert and a new build. But then I remembered there had been a water leak in my home that our family grew up in, and all of us were sick, but we presented very differently. And all of us had mold toxicity and chronic inflammatory response syndrome. But because I had the Lyme piece, it took a little bit longer to peel away all those layers of healing.
Wow.
So I guess more of my education has been what got missed by my practitioners on my healing journey. And at one point, I just had to walk away from my practitioners. Um, I had wonderful practitioners, but they were missing important pieces in the process of what you need to do to get well. So
So when did you first experience Lyme disease? And I've heard about Lyme disease since I am in America. I've never heard about Lyme disease when I was living in South Africa. And there we also are in the fields a lot and hunting. There's a lot of resorts and reservations out in South Africa as well. And we will always just say, you've got a little tick fever or something like that, but never did the word Lyme disease come up till I moved to America, and I was busy treating my one client, and he was mentioning that his wife had Lyme disease, and she was so weak from all of the energy and life that is taken out of her from this disease. So I really started to look into Lyme disease as well. And I told my kids, if you are in a field or if we go camping or something like that, where there's a lot of bushes and trees and nature, and you feel something bit you, you must immediately come tell me. And also to look for ticks or something on your body, because you don't really feel when that tick is sitting on your body. So how old were you when you were bitten?
you know, I don't know for sure. I never had the rash. I was 30 when I started with daily pain and symptoms. And I think that's when the Lyme was active. I had dogs. I lived in Pennsylvania, which was at the time very high for, being bitten by ticks that could have Lyme. I really knew nothing about Lyme. I didn't really worry about it. We had dogs and they always had ticks on them. Um, when people are toxic or they're in mold, make it very hard for their body to be able to fight anything, let alone Lyme. And so a lot of times Lyme and mold go hand in hand, and people who can't get better from chronic Lyme, it's because they're toxic, not just because of the Lyme bacteria, but they may have mold in their body, mycotoxins, just an elevated load of pathogens. And that's the piece that really got missed on my journey. Everybody's focused on killing the Lyme, but they're not looking at the whole picture.
Tell me, if you can think about it now, you felt the symptoms. Can you think maybe back where you maybe could have walked and when you could have been bitten? Because also, what that's also like a question that I have, for instance, is how long after you bitten are you starting to show symptoms of Lyme disease?
You can show symptoms pretty quickly. I mean, less than 24 hours, 48 hours. I had lots of ticks on me in my lifetime, but it wasn't until I was 30 that we feel the Lyme started. So I think at 30, but I always was out in the woods walking, and I always had dogs, and the dogs were in bed with me. So some people will have an instant like, oh, we went camping and I got bitten, and all of a sudden I had flu-like symptoms. I just started, it was like December, 30 years ago, just daily pain that migrated, achy flu-like symptoms that progressed to severe neuropathy, and then the inability to walk. And it wasn't until I was 52 that I was actually diagnosed.
Wow. With Lyme disease. Basically what you're saying is it goes into your bloodstream and it feels like you just have a normal cold flu symptoms. Because how will you know that you now have Lyme disease if it is a feeling like cold flu symptoms?
Well, it was different than the cold or flu because my pain was migrating. It wasn't, and I didn't run a fever. But I mean, there is testing out there like IGeneX. There's testing that's much better today. Lyme is much more a clinical diagnosis than just the testing. The Western blot and ELISA blot, can miss Lyme. So there are other tests that are available to test. So, I mean, if people need to know what's on, they can always do a test through Vibrant Labs for tick-borne illness or IGeneX. I always tell my clients, test your home for mold, because if a lot of clients I see are working with wonderful doctors, but they're living in mold and they're trying to kill the Lyme, but the immune system can't do its job when you're living in water damage. And a lot of times you don't see water damage. It's behind a wall. There's no smell. There's no visible signs. I'm in a new build that had, in the desert, that had black mold as part of the building material when we did testing. And I was able to heal in my house, and we couldn't find where that building material was. And the levels were low, but everybody's sort of different what level of toxic mold their body can handle being exposed to based on their genetics and based on their past exposures, because we're exposed all the time to things that we have no knowledge of, schools, college dorms, like that people were being exposed to mold and they didn't know they were, and that if you have poor genetics, that can accumulate in your body. And then
that is exactly what I am speaking about. Is one doesn't really know that you maybe have been affected by mold or something like that. I mean, a tick bite, you can maybe say, okay, well, I did get a bite, but if you don't know you had a bite, you don't think to go to the doctor and find out this or that. Only after you're really becoming so weak and you really, really look sick, that's when I normally will say, okay, well, now I look sick, or now I really feel sick, or now my children looks or feel sick, or they have a fever. I mean, does Lyme disease give you a fever so that you can maybe say, I have to go to the doctor because something's wrong? Or does it just come with time?
It's so different. Any illness, right? It's so different from person to person. So I never ran a fever. I had severe neuropathy to the point that I had a spinal cord stimulator implanted because I had trouble walking. Some people, their symptoms are psych symptoms. So it can present very differently. So people are suspicious and they're not getting better with what they're doing. It's worth doing a tick-borne illness panel through Vibrant or through IGeneX to see if they have Lyme or co-infections. And it's also worth ruling out mold because the symptoms of the two really overlap. But you could have 3 people in a family with Lyme and all 3 could present very, very differently. I was a little more classic with the severe neuropathy and pain that moved around, and I was labeled with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Most of the time, those illnesses are illnesses due to toxicity like mold or Lyme. Not always, but they're labels. They're not addressing the root, right, of what's wrong. They're just, then you're given medication to manage the symptom, not to get to why do you have these symptoms?
Yes, because fibromyalgia, again, that's also a kind of symptom or pain that you have all throughout your body. And from what I have experienced in life, I'm a massage therapist, certified medical massage therapist, and working with people with aches and pains in their bodies sometimes, like fibromyalgia. I mean, then they have pain here, then they have pain there, It is something that one must just always maintain, because it seems like fibromyalgia is also something that is just in your DNA.
Well, I was labeled with fibromyalgia.
Something you get from something like a tick bite, or do you say that it is in your DNA?
I truly don't believe it's in your DNA. Again, my approach as a functional health coach is to find the root of why people are sick. So those are labels. Fibromyalgia is a label, and people are sick and inflamed because they're toxic, or because they have pathogens, or because of trauma, stress, there's because of diet. And it's often not one thing. Everybody that I work with, all their pathogen loads are high. So if they have Lyme, their bacterial load's high, but so is their viral load, so is their parasite load, so is their mold load. Like everybody I see, their loads of everything are really, really high, but it can present very differently. One person has rheumatoid arthritis and one person has cancer, but they're both toxic. So I'm looking at bringing down the load of pathogens and viruses and bacteria and assessing, are they being exposed to mold and water damage in the home? Was their past exposure? And helping them to detox so that their body won't be so inflamed and their immune system can work properly. We're exposed to so much that we never think about or see. I live off a golf course, never thought about the fact that there's glyphosate and pesticides sprayed on the golf course. I wasn't a health coach when I moved here. And they say like people who live near a golf course are more likely to get Alzheimer's and dementia. If you're within,
I've never heard of
the
that.
pesticides that are sprayed on the green, the grass.
Wow.
And that's in the air. That's in the air close to your home. It can come into your home.
I mean, it's
other things.
There, yeah. Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah, so we're exposed to a lot in our water, in our air, in our homes, and other people's homes that we just have no idea, not including like skincare, hair care, clothing that can be toxic, food that can be toxic. I think we're more toxic in terms of products that we use than probably 50, 60 years ago. So it's a lot of times just people aren't aware of what we're being exposed to. I surely wasn't. Even as a dietitian, when I was a dietitian before I got sick, I didn't know a lot about toxicity or mold. But when I work with clients, I have to sort of educate them and see where they're willing to start. Because we got to start somewhere. We don't have to take care of everything, but we have to look at where are they willing, to replace something. If you run out of skincare and you buy something that's natural, that's safe to put on your skin, because when you put that makeup on your skin, it gets into your bloodstream in 26 seconds, and then your body has to deal with those chemicals that are in that makeup. And some people, their bodies have a harder time. I have a lot of people who are toxic and functional, and I have a lot more clients who are toxic and very sick because of the toxicity. People are very different how they present.
Wow, this is really interesting to talk about, because look, there are so many things that can make us feel that we don't have energy, and that is one of the most important things. If you start to talk about a diet or you want to lose weight, what is the first thing that you would want to improve in your body? The answer normally is energy, and if all of these external factors can influence your energy level like this, it's a lot to think about, I mean, taking care of yourself then becomes so much more important because we take it for granted.
We do, until you lose function. Like, I don't take for granted walking, because I struggled to walk and I was homebound for 10 years. I'm a little spoiled, but I mean, it's only been a few years that I haven't been struggling to walk, and use assistive devices. But when you lose that ability, that all you want to be able to do is be able to go for a walk, or be able to have the energy to play with your kids or your grandkids, or you don't appreciate it until you've lost it. You can't relate to somebody who's sick if you haven't been there.
Yes, that is so true. You can't relate to something if you haven't lost it. I have lost my entire family, and my mom, dad, 3 sisters, and my brother. Just so that you know, I mean, you don't know me that well, but yeah, sure, it really affected my energy level. It affected my body. It affected my diet, and not that I was eating more. I actually got to a stage where I didn't feel like eating, and my body stored whatever I put in it, and I picked up weight. And now, after writing my books that you see behind me here, I have released so much tension and depression and stress that I think something in my body has started to activate again, because I am now, focusing all my life. I think since after my first baby, you always want to lose weight, how our women are. Always on a diet somewhere or with something, but I think after just losing that depression or losing that stress that was overwhelming your whole body and your spirit and your mind, I think it's a mind thing as well, where if that all is healed up, one really starts to feel better, and I can definitely tell you, since I have let so much out of my body into paper or work, I like to write, I have released so much that I think something in me has, like I said earlier, activated again, because now I'm starting to lose weight again. I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel like I actually want to do stuff, where previously I didn't want to do anything, and I think that's what it's like Lyme disease.
A lot of loss.
Yeah, because you see, there's so many things that can be a reason for someone to become sick. You don't even have to be bitten by a spider or a tick or anything to become sick. By the end of the day, it is a very big mind thing as well, because you make your mind more sick because you think you are sick. Don't take me wrong, I'm not saying people are thinking that they are sick, but I know what I went through. I know that I didn't want to get up in the morning. I didn't want to feel better, and I didn't care sometimes how I look or this or that, where as soon as one just gets that little bit more positivity in you, and this is where the hope comes in, giving people hope, is that doesn't matter how tough life is today, we can get up today from whatever is keeping us down, and we can make a difference. Go see a doctor, go figure out what's wrong with you, but if you can do it the natural way, I would say and I'm not saying people should do this also, but I was on a lot of depression medication, especially from 2016. I already lost my mom, dad, and my big sister and my twin sister, and then after 2016, between those 4 years before I lost my little sister and my brother the same year of 2020, I started on depression medication because I just couldn't handle everything that was overwhelming my happiness, And
that's such a huge shock to the nervous system when we have that kind of loss, one after another. It's a huge shock to the nervous system.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and after I also started to decide to leave some of my medication because it felt like the medication was making me pick up weight. And I thought to myself, maybe if I can be positive in myself and try to get it out by writing books, because this was all hurting me inside me, but now that it's on paper, it feels literally that I can take that book and I can close it. And I can just put it down because it's not inside me anymore. And I think because I've been telling myself that, I think that is why I'm doing so much better as well, So with your life coaching, what do you offer to help people? Because I want to let people get in contact with you if they have a problem. How do they get in contact with you? And I believe you said that you do have a video as well that you can show us.
Yes. They can get in contact with me through Health Coaching by Heather toxicity.com is my website. On the website, there's a big button that says schedule a discovery call to just see. They can share what's going on, what their concerns are. I can share my approach. We can get a sense if we're a good fit, and they can ask questions. So that's complimentary. And I usually point them in the right direction, whether they're going to work with me or not. So what is mold toxicity? Basically, it is the buildup of mold toxins in your body. And this can happen, from previous exposure that you didn't even know about, or it could be current exposure or both. And that's why when someone has mold toxicity and they leave a toxic home, a lot of people will say, why don't I feel better? Well, the bottom line is the mold and the mycotoxins are still in their body. And so we have to get them out. So mold is considered a great masquerader. It can present as so many other health issues. And because of that, it is often, not diagnosed. And mold toxicity is caused not just due to mold and mold spores, but the biotoxins that mold can create. So mycotoxins are one of those, but when there's water damage, we also have bacteria and endotoxins. So all of those things are lumped together and called a biotoxin, and that adds to the toxic bucket. Now, mold toxicity, these issues are not typically, treated in conventional medicine, and doctors aren't trained in environmental illness. But my big why is I really don't want people to suffer, and I want people to know that they have hope. When people have been sick a long time, and especially in the chronic Lyme world, a lot of people have been sick and they're missing this mold piece, and the regenerative approach piece. So that's my heart, is to see people get better quicker and to be able to truly get to the underlying root of what's causing them to be ill. The video is really just covering if you're questioning whether you're dealing with mold toxicity or chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is really just the toxic bucket in the body overflowing, to help you assess, do you have symptoms of mold, and help you to see how different people may appear who have mold toxicity, because my whole family had mold toxicity. We all looked very different, and that's why it gets missed in conventional medicine. And doctors aren't trained in mold toxicity or environmental illness in conventional medicine. So we go over the basics so you can understand what is mold, what are mycotoxins, and what are your first steps if you're thinking you might have mold toxicity in the video.
And I believe that one can get a mold tester. I've not personally done that before, but I believe that there are testers that you can test for mold, that you can do yourself
My
as well.
recommendation, yes, if you suspect mold in your home, I recommend somebody does a dust cloth test for mold, in ERMI, ERMI, through Envirobiomics. It's a do-it-yourself test. Mold spores tend to be heavy, so air testing when you have an inspector come in often misses mold, and we go over that in the video. So you can have a negative air test and still be being exposed to mold or mycotoxins. So an ERMI is a great place to start. There are ways to test the body as well, but like any test, every test for the body and the home has pros and cons. Like there's no perfect test out there, and I would not get a test on Amazon. You want to work with these companies that this is all they do. And
Yes.
Envirobiomics is one of those.
Especially people who live in Minnesota, I would say, or in America in the upper north area that gets snow every year. I can just imagine with all that wetness sitting around your house, it's a good thing. You are definitely making a little light go off in the back of my mind here to tell my husband that we should definitely maybe do a mold test. Not that I suspect any mold, but yeah, I
You
mean,
want me to give you a few
normally
basics?
you normally can smell mold or it smells not.
Not always. No, not always. 70%, 50 to 70% of the homes in the US have some history of water damage. at levels that can be toxic. And so you don't have to smell mold. Now, if you smell mold, that is not a good sign
So that's already
at
too
all.
far because I was going to say
Right.
I don't smell anything, I'm very, very
No.
aware of certain smells in my house.
But
But
if people have
wow, it
chronic
is
conditions,
definitely, it's, you're definitely making me think, it's so
oh, well, good. I
interesting
mean,
to
and I
think
hope
about this.
if somebody has chronic conditions and they're not getting better, like you're trying to get better, you're doing things holistically, and you have cancer, you have Lyme, you have just a whole list of illnesses, and you don't know why, and the labels keep increasing, it's usually mold or toxicity. And it's starting with the home because we spend so much more time in our home than we used to post COVID. It's just so important. Kids have allergies. You have asthma, classic sinus infections, getting sick all the time. If somebody's well, I don't usually say test your house for mold, but the people who are coming to see me are not getting better. I had a gal with cancer in her 30s. I was on her podcast and I'm positive she's in mold. And I think that's why she got the cancer. We started doing stuff to support her body and she's feeling so good. She's enjoying life, but she hasn't tested her home. And I'm just afraid if she doesn't test her home, that exposure is going to come back to bite her butt. But everybody is in the house sick,
Wow, so
with
that is
different.
definitely an indication, is if you don't get better from something. Um, but
Well,
you
or if
shouldn't
you have any
also
chronic,
get sick first before you test. I think it's a good thing to maybe just test just for in case. I mean,
yes,
I thank God that everyone in our house is healthy, but we want to
mhm,
keep it like that. So
right.
it's just sometimes that awareness. We need to hear this to just make us aware of it again, and just to make sure that we do those tests now and then because, sure, you don't want to get sick and then you're really sitting with trouble.
Yeah, it takes time to restore health once we're sick. It's a process of peeling away an onion,
It is.
and you're just peeling away different layers that sure to show up that need to be addressed. So better to be proactive. I wish I knew about, mold 30 years. I had asthma my whole life from 3 years old. And my parents told me in my 50s that my childhood bedroom had black mold in the wall. It had Stachybotrys. When they replaced the window, my whole wall in the bedroom was mold. And I thought, oh, that's why I had digestive issues. That's why I had asthma. That's why I had sinus infections. And my genetics, my immune system can't recognize the mold and it couldn't remove it from my body. So once I started to address the mold in my body, within 3 months, my asthma was gone. And I was asthmatic from 3 to like 57, and it's gone. And I was on 6 drugs for my asthma. So asthma, very classic when people have asthma, peanut allergies, very classic mold exposure, whether it's mold in school, mold in the home, or mold somewhere else that's building up in their body. But I didn't know this, until I went down that rabbit hole,
Wow,
myself.
this
So
is
my
so
heart and my mission
interesting.
is
Wow.
to
Yeah,
keep
sure.
people
It just
from
shows.
suffering.
I
Yeah,
am I am like really stunned to think that I have not really thought this way for a while, because like you said, when you are sick, you're starting to like, what can I do? And you find out all these reasons later. But I
right.
always say prevention is better than cure. And like I said, oh
Definitely.
my word, I
There
think I
needs
need to do a test.
there needs to be more awareness, right? I mean, there's more awareness about mold, but I'm in a health coaching world, right? And so I'm hearing about it all the time because that's what I do. But I had never heard about mold toxicity until 4.5 years ago when I was diagnosed with mold toxicity. I didn't know mold made you sick. Like it's just not in the mainstream the way it should be. It's not, conventional doctors aren't trained on it at all. So you go to a conventional doctor, unless they've had mold toxicity, they're not going to know. You go to the ER with your crazy symptoms. I mean, it's Lyme and mold. It's getting better, but it's not in the mainstream the way it should be, that doctors can assess for it because it's so easy to test for it in your body and in your home.
Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, this is very interesting. Huh. I
Well,
have not
I'm
had
glad it
such an
was, I'm
interesting
glad you,
talk about this type of issues for a while, and wow. So if you can say, let's give the people some hope out there, what would you say, throughout your experience and the fact that you couldn't walk properly and now you are walking and you're feeling much more healthier? What can you say or advice that you can give to the clients and the people out there, that
God gave our body this amazing ability to bring it back to balance and to health. Um, and so I want to give people hope no matter what they're dealing with. There's a root cause, and a lot of times there's more than one root cause. And that root cause can be determined. And if someone wants to go the holistic route or go the integrative route or combine, what they're doing with holistic measures, we can look at what the root is and assess, is it mold? Is it toxicity? Is it pathogens in the body? Is it heavy metals? And normally it's a combination of all of the above. But we can help bring the body back into balance and remove those interferences that aren't allowing the body to do what it needs to do to get well. Adding a drug in over the counter or prescription is treating the symptom. It's not treating the root, and it's just adding to the toxic burden of the body and the work that the liver has to do. I was put on 20 drugs because they didn't know what was wrong with me, and I didn't know there was another option. That meant, as part of my healing, my liver was such a mess, and gallbladder. I had to do a lot of work to heal my liver and gallbladder, and those drugs that were in my system had to be detoxed out of my system. So if I hadn't been put on all those drugs, I think my journey would have been a lot, right, easier. And I've learned what are alternatives, right? What can I take if I'm not feeling good and I have a little pain? What herbs can I use? I don't go to prescriptions unless, it's an absolute necessity because there's no other option. So I really don't want to treat symptoms. I want to address the root cause and educate people about why are they having these symptoms, what's causing them, so then I can help guide them and help educate them about how do they want to address it. I can give them my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm a guide, somebody who's guided over 900 people in their health who were very, very chronically ill. But even those of us, I was sick 28 years. I want to give people hope they can get better. Now, it's going to be work. It's not always going to be fun. It's definitely work, and you got to be mentally want to get well and be willing to do the work. But I want people to know it's possible. It's so possible. The body is amazing. It's once you remove those interferences for you, some of that was the trauma of all those deaths. And once you work on those, and it looks different for everybody,
yes,
um, the body has this. My, I'm amazed. My cells are healing. Like my cells could not heal, and they could not clean out the waste and garbage because I was so full of pathogens and parasites. They just couldn't. And now they're doing it on its own. Like my body's doing stuff it hasn't in terms of cleanup on its own. And my body's killing parasites on its own. And it's crazy because I didn't even know the body. I never knew I had the ability to truly get well until I started to see shifts. And I thought, oh, we're on to something.
yes,
But the body has an amazing ability when you can address those things that are hindering wellness.
yes, that is definitely what you just said, about your cells are healing because mentally you are in a better place. It just, wow, this was really one of the most interesting talks about health that I've had for a while. And it's definitely something that I will address and have checked, because you don't want to um, have it just sit and then eventually you get sick or your children get sick. Um,
Well, thanks
Heather,
for just allowing me to share and bring awareness, right, to
yes,
the
well,
topic. And maybe somebody will listen and go, maybe I need to check that out.
yes, well, if this have not motivated anyone to go and get things checked out a little, then I don't know. Then you maybe don't want to worry about not getting sick, but I think we all have that in our minds in today's life. We have to make sure that we take care of the surrounding areas where our children has to grow up in. Heather, wow, thank you so much for all of this information. I really appreciate you being on my show today. This is definitely different, and wow, I'm very impressed. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here, Johanna.
Yeah, you are very welcome. Well, I am going to tell you, if you out there have a story that can inspire me like this story today, it does not always have to be about death or losing a family member to be on my show, Give Me Hope with Johanna. Because like this story today definitely gave me hope in a different perspective again, which definitely helps us to go on with life in a more positive way. I am Johanna Vendel. You have been watching Give Me Hope with Johanna. And if you have a story to tell, please reach out to me and we will get you on my podcast. Thank you and have a good day.
Johanna Vendel. Join Johanna each week and harness the transformative power of storytelling to facilitate healing and growth. Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern.